I paid over $1,000 for these 4 broken handhelds. Let's see if I can fix them and make some money. So I actually got a good enough deal on these that I probably could sell them for parts and still make money. These go for about $300 on eBay just for parts. So I have about $1,200 in parts, plus this one has the Turbo Vision, which is worth something too. Now, if I can fix each one of these, I could get around $400 to $500 for each one. I haven't tested any of these yet, so let's do that now and see what's wrong with them. So handheld number 1 is missing the battery cover. We've got some discoloration, possible corrosion down here in the battery compartment. But let's get some batteries in and see what it does. These things are battery eaters. 6 AA's, and I've heard they lasted for about 3 hours. All right, let's see if we have power. And nothing. Not even close. Yep, just nothing. Okay, let's get this thing apart, see what's going on the inside. Okay, now there is something connected to the side. Ooh, to both. Oh, we got all sorts of stuff going on in here. And definitely some corrosion down in there, I see. Okay. Oh, here's a major problem. The battery cable is totally disconnected right there. Oh, that'd be amazing if that's all that was wrong with this one. Okay, but I do want to take this out and inspect the other side of this, this board right here. So we want to look at these capacitors. I don't see any of them bulging or leaking as far as I can tell so far. I think these, oh, that one, there you got some major problem here. But is that a capacitor issue or from the battery compartment issue? Either way, we got a major problem there. So we'll have to inspect that. I'm gonna have to remove this metal shield, I think, to get this off and see what's under there. And other than that, the rest of these don't look too bad. Oh, this capacitor is definitely leaking right here. It's got some black goo around it. So that's gonna be a problem for sure. So we've got to deal with this issue, we've got to deal with this issue, and then we got to get the wires fixed for the battery connection. So the first thing we need to do is remove this metal shield. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 points we need to remove the solder from. So I'm going to use some solder wick and try and do that. So first we need to flux it up though. Put plenty of flux on each one. That'll just help the solder flow right into my wick. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. And one more. 4. There we go. Okay, now this one is covered by epoxy, which is annoying. Hopefully I can get this epoxy off of here. Oh, okay, that actually came off pretty easy. All right, that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Okay, and whatever that is, I finally got the cover off, and it looks like it's some sort of transformer, so I don't expect that's the problem. Now, this capacitor just fell off the board when I was working, so it could be just this capacitor that leaked. I'm going to remove all this goo just to see if there's anything under there that we need to clean and worry about, because there could be a problem under there as well. And just looking at it, there's nothing under here. This is all nice and clean. So I think what we had is just a capacitor that just totally leaked. So we need to replace that, clean this all up, see if there's any damage on any of the traces, and then we can get to the other repairs on this board. Let's get into the microscope now so we can look at the damage here and see if it's going to be fixable. Okay, and this is where the damage started. Definitely have some torn pads. All of this is not ideal, but it's fine. This via doesn't look like it's connected to anything here, so it's fine here. But this one over here could be a problem. You get this scraped and cleaned off, and then we can inspect this a little bit better. Okay, and this is looking a lot better. We still got some pretty stuck on corrosion right here. Got to get all of that off because it'll kind of just like keep spreading and eating away at things. Is that a through hole? That could be a major issue. And up here looks a little corroded as well. Man, the more we go here, the more damage we find. Okay, This guy I'm a little worried about here for sure. Okay. Now let's clean this up again and see what kind of damage we're looking at. So this pad has been torn off. This pad has been torn off. This via might need some work, so because that connects to that pad as well. And then we need to inspect these two vias up here and this via right here. Here we are on the other side of the board. This is one of the vias. This is one of the vias. This is one of the vias. And this is one. This might be two. So we've got to get these things cleared out a little bit better. Got to make sure there's continuity from one side to the other. I'm going to be using some K files for dental use only. I mean, I'm using a dental pick also, so I feel like this is definitely considered dental work. It's the first time I've used these. I saw these in a comment on one of my videos that I should use these. So I bought some. This one looks like the perfect one. So let's see how this works. You don't want to bend it. Ooh. It works great for that one. There we go. Works good there. Okay. This one up here, though. Oh, there we go. Got that. Man, this works amazing. I don't know. I don't remember who commented this. I think there was a couple people that did. So if that was you, thank you. This is a great tool for cleaning these vias out. I don't want to do it too much because I don't want to wear through the copper if there's any copper there still. But I want to do it enough to get all the corrosion out of them. That thing works so good. Okay, that is looking amazing now. Let's clean these up. Look at that. So good. So that is my new favorite tool for cleaning vias out for sure. And along with that, I'm going to use some paper points, just little pieces of paper to put right down in those, and that should dry them out. Let's try using a 15. If you've ever had a root canal, you probably have had a bad experience with these. Not a bad experience, but just a bad association, I guess. Come on. There we go. Oh yeah, that works good. Yep, that's drying these right out. Man, so cool. I'm a pretty big fan of these dental tools. Okay, and now with all that done, we need to see if there's continuity from this side of the board through the via to the other side, and if there's not, then we need to fix that circuit trace and until there is. Same with over here, and same with right here. All right, so we're gonna go from right here to, where are we at back here? Okay, we seem to be good on this one. Let's check this one right here. Good there. Good there. That one's also good. And one more. This one here to here. Okay, so all of those vias are actually good. So all we have to do is worry about getting that capacitor mounted on there. Now before we get to replacing this capacitor, I wanted to show the damage these things do when they leak. Here you can just see the underside is just totally corroded from all that leaking. So that's the problem with these capacitors when they leak, but we've got a new one, so let's get it replaced. So the first thing we need to do is prep these pads. I'm going to put some flux on them and then see if they'll take any solder. I think they probably will, but let's find out. All right, so I have my large iron so I can get plenty of heat on these joints. Let's give this a bit of a scrubbing with a Q-tip. Oh, look at all that it's getting off. And then we'll come in with more solder. Yep, good there. All right, that's pretty good. Okay, now we'll come in on this side, heat that up. Okay, that is looking good. Now, there is this via. I'm going to bring a wire through the via, and oh, the via is right down there. Wasn't expecting that to cover that up. That's a problem. So we need to take this thing back off. All that work I just did. Okay, that's the via. Let's run the wire first and then we'll connect that capacitor. So the wire is going to go down through. We're going to bring this over like that. Now we should be able to get our capacitor installed. So one lead right there. Good. The other one right over here. Good. Okay, that is connected nicely. Now we need to connect our wire. Okay, there we go. Now I just need to connect the other side and we'll be done. So this actually connects to this capacitor right here. So that's what we're going to have it connect to. Okay, so that part of the job is done, but now we have a couple more problems. The first one is this capacitor. It's got some black goo leaking out, so we need to fix that problem. Then I noticed this capacitor has a problem. This capacitor might have a problem. And one of these, this capacitor also might have a problem. So I'm actually just gonna get those replaced. And I have 2 complete kits, but I have 4 of these TurboExpresses. So while I want to just replace all the capacitors in all of them, I don't have all the parts for it. So I am just gonna replace the ones that are visibly leaking, and we'll see if that's enough to fix it. So let's start out with this capacitor that's leaking the black goo. We need to suck up the solder from these 2 joints, and then we can just push the legs through. There we go. Now we'll clean this all up, make sure any corrosion is cleaned off of the board here. So this gets folded down like that. There we go. Now some more flux. And some more solder. One for that joint, some for that joint. And there we go. Now we got that one replaced. That is looking great. All right, so let's get these ones done next. So those ones are definitely the worst. I don't see any others that look like they've been leaking. These ones all look fine. And since I only have a limited number of capacitors, I think it's time to put this thing back together enough to test. Oh, but we got to fix those battery wires. So let's do that next. Okay, so this wire is fully corroded. That is crazy. This one also doesn't look amazing, but it is still attached. Also, even down in this connector, it looks like it's kind of green, so we need to get some vinegar and get down in there. So let's do that next, and then we can also put it on these contacts too and get that cleaned up. Okay, I got some vinegar on this toothbrush right here. Hopefully this connector is good and the battery and the connections, the cable connection in here is good. I think it'll be good, but it's hard to know for sure. Okay, now the end of this wire is definitely no good. There we go. And now with that wire all fixed, we got to clean up all these battery contacts. So I'm going to get that vinegar back out and just brush it all around and get all of that cleaned out. Okay, so now we need to make sure that this wire is good from here to the connector. So we'll back probe the connector like this and touch it here. Okay, so I don't know if my probe got back to the connector far enough. Yep, there we go, that one. And this one, same thing, good. So now we know that that's good. Now we can get this thing back together and see if all that work we did was worth it. Okay, all back together. Game is in. Let's see if it powers on. Here we go. Oh, nothing. Wait. No, the screen does get a little brighter. Can't really, oh, there we go. So the screen definitely gets a little brighter, but it doesn't do anything at all. All right, got to get it back apart, see if we can figure out what's going on. So I have it back apart, and one thing I wanted to check is this controller board here. So I have the screws out. Let's have a look. Oh, wow. That capacitor leaked all over this board. I mean, all over, all the way down here. Like, all through here, all through here. Holy cow. Oh my goodness. That is crazy. So this entire board, from all the way from here where the capacitor is, all the way up here. This is not great. I feel like when we have this level of corrosion, there's probably, oh yeah, these carbon pads are just disintegrated. Look at that. Okay, so I think that kind of tells us what we're going to end up doing with this one. I think I can replace this board, and that may be an option. I think for now, though, we're going to use this one for parts to see if we can fix the other ones with these boards. Although we know this board isn't working, this board is also not working. So this one might be just unfixable. I'm not sure. But I'm going to set this one aside for now. This has gotten a lot more intense. If I do decide to fix this one, I am going to need to get another one of these boards because I think this one is just not going to be fixable. All right, let's move on to number 2. And with all the batteries in, we can turn it over and see what happens when we turn it on. Oh, we get the screen sort of comes on. Oh, that's actually decently bright. Let's see. Brightness control sort of works. Yeah, brightness control works. Definitely have an audio issue, just get kind of a whining noise. Let's see what happens when we try gaming it. And with the game installed, let's see what happens. And we get the exact same thing. All right, let's open this one up and see what it's like on the inside. As a side note, I don't actually know if any of those games work, so hopefully we're not just testing bad games. But given the fact that there's just nothing displayed on the screen no matter what, I think it's probably not a game card issue. I think it's probably something going on the inside of this thing. So far there is no battery corrosion, which is nice. I feel like it's probably a capacitor issue. And if this one's not too damaged, I may just need to replace all of the capacitors. I just need to buy a couple more capacitor kits so I can just replace all of them and any of these that look fixable, which is hopefully all of them except for that first one. But we'll find out here in a second. All right, let's see what the inside looks like on this one. Oh, we got some sort of mod going on here. I don't even know what all this is. That's a lot of wires though. And this wire is just not connected to anything, okay. But did they replace the capacitors before they did the mod? I think we need to take this apart further and find out. That's just so many wires. I'm not sure what mod that's going to be for. And we have new capacitors. That is some ugly soldering, but they are new capacitors. This one looks like, oh no, I guess it's connected. Although they didn't replace this. I think that's the original one. Same with these two. Why would they not replace those? I don't know. So all those wires are connected down here to the game slot board. But let's get this thing just all the way taken apart here. All right. So we've got, these are all connected to different pins on the game slot. Wow, so this pin on the game slot isn't even connected to anything down here. It's just totally been eaten away by corrosion, but they connected it to here. So this board says region switch. So this is some sort of region-free mod, I'm guessing. All right, so I'm gonna figure out a couple things. Number one, where this wire goes, and number two, why this thing isn't booting anything up onto the screen. I feel like that has to do with these capacitors that weren't replaced. Not sure why you'd do all that work to replace all of them except for some, although I guess I just sort of did that, so maybe they didn't have enough, I don't know. So I'm thinking we need to replace this one, and this one, and then we might need to remove this shield and replace some under there as well. So here we are under the microscope because that one loose wire needs to be soldered right to this point right here. So I am going to do that. And then I think I'll test it again and just see how it looks, if anything works after that. I feel like some of these capacitors probably need to be replaced, but we'll just give it a try first. Now we can take our wire and solder right there. Come on. There we go. It's a nice strong joint. Now with that done, we can try and power it up and see what happens. All right, and back together enough to test. Let's see what happens. And exactly the same thing. Okay, so I think we got some capacitors to replace in here. I want to look at the other two and see if we just need a whole bunch of new capacitors. Because if we do, I need to get those ordered so we can just get those all replaced. I was hoping there would be other repairs than just capacitors on these, but so far, it looks like that might be the main issues. But let's take a look at number 3 and number 4. So for number 3, we get a very dim display when we press the power button. Let's check number 4. And actually, before we check number 4, let's have a look at the inside of this one. We're missing 2 screws right here. That's not great news. Hopefully this one's not too messed up on the inside. And we have capacitors not replaced. And there's definitely some leaking, so this one definitely needs capacitors. The rest of it, though, looks to be actually in decent condition. I don't see any major leakage on the capacitors, at least not so much that it's corroding the board. So that's good news. So that's that one. Let's have a look at number 4. All right, number 4. Got a little bit of a screen. It's hard to see on camera. It does show up. No volume, and the brightness doesn't do anything though. All right, so probably the same thing here, but let's get these screws out and see what we need on the inside. And that one's leaking. Actually, the rest of them don't look too bad. Okay, that's impressive. So given that this one is probably in the nicest condition, I'm going to work on this one first. See if we can get this one working, and then we'll move on to the others. Meanwhile, I think I need to get some more capacitor kits ordered. Now, I think what I'll do on this one is just replace all the capacitors using the one complete kit that I have. But before I do that, I want to actually just replace this one capacitor right here. From what I've read online, this capacitor affects the screen. And some people say just replacing this one will get it working, so let's try it and find out if it actually does. Okay, that side's lifted, I think. And now this side. There we go. Now just have to install the new one. One side. Okay, and easy enough, that one's done. All right, all together. Will it turn on and the screen work? Whoa! that does work. Look at that. That is amazing. I can't believe that just happened. Sound definitely still does not work. It really was just that one capacitor. That is crazy. Okay, well, we still got more capacitors to replace. I think once we replace the capacitors for the sound, that the sound will work. But so far, this is great news. Now I'm just going to get it back apart and we'll replace all the rest of those capacitors. So what I need to do first is remove this shield so we can get to the capacitors under the shield. So I'm just going to be sucking the solder up from this point, this point, this point, and this point I think is under this shield, so I don't know. I might just cut that one or see if I can get under it, but that's what I'm going to do now and see if we can get the shield off. Come on. There we go. Got him. And now with all of those capacitors replaced, that was a lot of work, but I think it's going to be worth it. Let's get this thing back together and make sure it still works and see if it has sound. Number 4 is all back together. Let's see if it turns on. It does. But do we get sound? Oh, yeah, we do. Great sound. Buttons seem to work. And we are off. If I can figure out how to make it go. There we go, look at that. And let's see if this is an open world. It is definitely not an open world. Okay, so number 4 is all fixed. Let's move on to another one and see if we can fix another one. I actually want to move back to number 1 and see if replacing just that one capacitor will get the screen working on that one too. And here we go. I'm going to throw some flux on here. Get the old one removed. I have this thing partially in the board still, but I think we can do it even still. Okay, old one is out. Okay, there we go. Now, let's get this one turned on and see if that's enough to fix this one too. So I put the top half of number 3 on the motherboard of number 1, just so we can test it since number 1 is pretty messed up. All right, let's see what happens. Oh, we just get no power at all. Okay, well, I was hoping that would fix number 1, but clearly it does not. Okay, number 1 definitely has more issues, and we will leave it as a parts handheld. All right, let's move on to the real number 3. So I ordered more capacitor kits, so I want to replace this capacitor on number 3 and see if that's enough to get the screen working. After that, I will replace all these other capacitors because you can see that they are bulging a little bit. So let's get that done and just see if that gets the screen working. If soldering is something you're interested in learning and just have no clue how to do it or where to get started, I've actually created some soldering courses that are great for people who have little to no experience. In fact, my first course is absolutely free, and then if you want to learn more, I do have several other paid courses. If you're interested in learning more about that, go to GameConsoleRepairSchool.com. Okay, and here we go. Let's see what it looks like when we turn it on. Do we have a brighter screen? Yes. Yes, we do. Still no sound, but that one single capacitor fixed that screen. That's amazing. There we go. We got a little brighter there. Okay. So now I'm going to get it taken back apart and replace all the rest of the capacitors, and then we'll come back and see if everything else works. So we've got a trace that's been torn off the board here, and this one looks like it's just totally been eaten away. So let's get under the microscope so we can check that out closer. So unfortunately, this pad is torn and this pad is also torn, which means we don't have a great mounting system for that capacitor. So I think what I'm going to do is use either some CA glue or epoxy and epoxy that down. And then we need to make sure the negative, the ground pin, is connected here, and the positive pin is connected to this trace right here. So I'm just going to use a little grinding pen to grind off some of the solder mask down here. And then the same thing over here. I'm going to try and do it carefully without destroying this piece, but I might destroy it. All right, and that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do next is attach the capacitor to these circuit traces, and then we will attach the capacitor to the board. If I attach the capacitor to the board first, I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough access to these pins to get them soldered onto the capacitor correctly. So let's add a little flux. Now we'll come in with some solder. Now we will try to attach our capacitor somehow. This is going to be pretty difficult. Yeah, I'm going to need to extend this one out here a little bit, so I'm going to add a wire to that, and then we'll attach this side here and this side over there. The wire is going to be nice and long, because if it's shorter, then it can melt the solder when I'm trying to solder the other end of it, whereas if it's longer, it's more likely to not do that. Okay, there we go. Let's get that soldered on a little bit better. Okay, now the main thing is trying to get this thing soldered onto that ground pin over there in a way that it will stay where we need it to stay, which could be difficult. So right about there is where we need it. Didn't get it. Okay. I think we need to add more solder over there. It's just not close enough to stay soldered down, or not close enough to connect. And so close. Got it. Okay, there's that. Now I need to solder this side down. Onto this wire. Okay, definitely not ideal, and now we have to fit, I don't know if we're going to be able to fit the other one over here. So this one needs to go on here. Yeah, we're going to have to move this a little bit. Okay. Hopefully we can make this work without causing any problems. So, I need to move this more. Okay, how close are we now? Pretty close. In fact, I think close enough, maybe. That felt good. I'm gonna get in on this side. Okay, I think we're good there. Definitely good there. Oh, wow. That was difficult, but I think we have it. Need to clean this up and then get some CA glue on it. We'll cut that wire off there. Hopefully we can clean that up enough to even get CA glue on it. Yeah, that's good. That might be enough to keep it, but I want to stabilize that a bit. So we'll do that in a little bit. I want to get the rest of these capacitors replaced. But yeah, I'll actually clean this up after I get this big capacitor on here. We'll clean that up and get it glued down so that can dry while we're working with the rest of it here. Got it? Got it. Okay, the rest of these I'm going to replace off camera. If something exciting happens, I will turn on the camera and film it. So we have every capacitor replaced on this board. We have this little capacitor replaced. Now let's get this thing back together and see if the sound works. And back together, batteries are in, game is in. Let's see what we get when we try to turn it on. Screen, do we get sound? Yes! That's what I'm talking about. Holy cow, we get really loud sound. So number 3 is all fixed. Let's move on to number 2 and see if we can fix that one. All right, and back to the mess that is number 2. Okay, so I think the best thing here is probably going to be to replace all the capacitors, even though they already replaced them. I just feel like, I don't know, I don't trust what they did, and also I'm not sure the capacitors they used, if they're good or if there's any problems there. So I think that's going to be our best bet with this one. Yeah, and also like there's some that are still leaking too, so I'm not sure. Maybe what I'll do is replace all the ones that they didn't replace and then see if that's enough to get this thing working. And just as I suspected, these capacitors have not been replaced, and several of them don't look great. These ones are the worst though. These are definitely leaking and bulged, so we'll get those replaced, but I'll just replace all the rest of these as well. And this one is also leaking, which is no surprise. I'm gonna get this done off camera. If I find something interesting, I will for sure film it. All right, and we now have all of those capacitors replaced. So I think we're good. We're ready to put this thing back together and see if it'll work now. All right, and number 2, all back together. We got a game in it. We have the batteries installed. Let's see what happens when we turn it on. The screen lights up and nothing else happens. No sound, no video, no anything. Okay, well, let's open up and have a look at it on the inside one more time and just see if there's anything going on that we can figure out. So we're back under the microscope. I found this capacitor that's not even connected, and then I found this other capacitor that is very loose. So I'm not sure if these are the cause of the problems we're having, but I'm gonna go ahead and get these soldered back in their correct places, and then we can put it back together and test it. I've also noticed there's quite a few capacitors on here that have traces that have been torn up, that the previous person repairing it just soldered to those loose traces. I don't know if those traces are broken somewhere either, so this board is turning into kind of a mess. I think if this doesn't work, I'm gonna just call this one unfixable, because there's so many issues between the capacitor problems and then the circuit trace problems, and then we have the problems with the game slot. Some of the game slot pins are just totally eaten away by corrosion, and then we also have this mod that was installed, and I'm assuming it was installed correctly. I checked a bunch of the wires and it seems to be, but I'm not totally sure on that either. All right, and there we go. We have it all fixed up. Let's get it back together and see if it works. We've got the battery in, we've got the game card in. Let's see what happens when we try and turn it on. Come on. Oh, hey, the screen brightness changes. I mean, that's good, I guess. But unfortunately, we've just got nothing. So unfortunately, I'm gonna call number 2 not fixable. There's just too many issues on this board, and even if I was able to get it working, there's a good amount of corrosion around the game slot pins, and that could cause problems in the future. So I'm gonna use this for parts for future repairs. And that means we were able to fix these 2 out of the 4 we got. Not the best results, I was hoping for better, but 2 out of 4 still isn't too bad, and I love bringing these old handhelds back to life. If you wanna see a video where I tried to fix every single color of the Game Boy Play It Loud edition, I'll put a link for that video up on your screen now so you can come hang out with me over there and see if I was able to fix those. Thanks so much for watching today, and I hope you have a good one.